Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Stephanie Rivers. I'm the Senior Director of Development at Reimagine, and I want to personally thank you all for being here and welcome you to our first ever Table Talk. Born out of Reimagine's commitment to communities of color through our efforts towards justice and equity, diversity, and inclusion, also known as JEDI, along with making Reimagine's programming accessible and inclusive for people of all backgrounds, abilities, identities, and ages. Table Talk was created by the Reimagine team as a space for our BIPOC and other underrepresented communities to openly produce events for those communities and audiences of ours on a wide array of subjects relating to how we live and die in our communities. Of course, everyone is welcome, as is the ethos of Reimagine. You are welcome to learn, you are welcome to teach, you are welcome to celebrate, to cry, to laugh together in the name of equity, love, life, and death. Thank you all for being here. I hope you are inspired by today's program. Now, before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to thank our 2020 sponsors. Without them, these events and others like it would not be possible. Today's event is part of our Creating Space Festival. We hope that many of you who are joining us today will continue to explore all the events offered by Reimagine. And thank you to our sponsors again for supporting our work. Thank you. So to get started, I would like to welcome our speakers and thank you all so very much for being here today. To get us going, I want to introduce our moderator for today's program, Taking Care of Business, Advanced Planning with Faith. Our board member, Pastor Corey Kennard, is a healthcare activist and pastor of Amplify Christian Church. Pastor Corey, take it away.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It is definitely a pleasure to be here and to see everyone involved. Thank you all for being a part of this. We want to definitely thank our Reimagine team, Andy and Zubin and you, Stephanie, for being just such a great proponent of this type of programming that we need to have for the BIPOC community. It's very important. So I want to say to all of you today that we have some great people on board today, an all-star cast. And I'm not saying that to make them out to be celebrities. They would be very upset if we were to look at them in that way. However, they are humble servants who are making a difference in the area of end-of-life care, advanced care planning, hospice, palliative care in the African-American community and communities of color. And so I want to take the time to have them to introduce themselves. I'm going to say their names, and then once I say that individual's name, that person will come forth with a two-minute introduction of themselves. But also, along with that introduction, and there's something that we want you to do as well as you join in introducing yourselves. We want our speakers to not only tell you just a snippet about who they are, but also to describe the table that they're sitting at now, or a table that is meaningful to them and what that table represents. So that's going to be a part of the introduction. To all of those who are joining us who are not speakers, I'm going to ask that you would take a moment in the chat as we are introducing ourselves to describe a table where you are sitting, a table that is meaningful to you. You may not be sitting at that table now, but a table that's meaningful to you. And just put in a couple things in the chat that actually allow us to have a beautiful description of that particular table. So we thank you for joining in with us in this exercise. So with that being said, I'm going to ask my good friend, Michelle Drayton, who's all the way in New York. I'm in Detroit, so we're all over on this particular call. And I'm going to ask that Michelle would come forth now to introduce herself.
Thank you, Corey, and good afternoon to everyone at Reimagine. I am so excited about this first table talk. I'm sitting at my dining room table where my family gathers every night for important discussion and good food. And so hopefully we can all join together in some rich and really good dialogue about the importance of advanced care planning and end-of-life care. I'm the director for Hospice and Palliative Care Access at Visiting Nurse Service of New York and the HOPE program. And my passion centers on ensuring that particularly communities of color have access to hospice and end-of-life care, and that we actually begin the process with an advanced care plan. The data, both nationally and locally, really reveals that African Americans and Latinos have significantly low utilization of hospice, and oftentimes we end up dying in a hospital receiving aggressive therapy at the end of life. I want to see us having an option. And today, I think we're going to be talking about the role of hospice at end of life, and clearly the importance of an advanced care plan. So thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to the dialogue. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Cynthia, all the way out in California.
Thank you so much, Pastor Corey. Hello, everybody. This is a joy to see all of you and to be here in this wonderful sacred space because we're all human beings and we have this pleasure to share in the human experience. So I'm Cynthia Carter-Perrelliot, the Executive Director and one of the co-founders of the Alameda County Care Alliance Collaborative. As Corey mentioned, we are located in Northern California, and we are thrilled to participate in this Reimagine session. Thank you for the leaders of Reimagine for this wonderful opportunity as well. And of course, my esteemed colleagues, who I'm just thrilled to be on this panel together with each and every one of you. So the Alameda County Care Alliance Collaborative is a coalition, if you will, of organizations that are faith-based. We are also partners with health systems. We collaborate with community organizations, and we have about 25 churches presently that we work with very extensively. We have an incredible group of care navigators. These are paid positions within the faith-based community, and they're thoroughly trained navigators, much like community health workers, to really work not only within the context of their churches, but also in the broader community. I mentioned the health system partners, which are really important because our approach is what some might refer to as wraparound services. So for example, we approach advanced illness and end of life, if you will, from a very holistic perspective, mind, body, and spirit. And so if the spiritual is important to an individual, we honor that. If that's not important to them, but they want to focus on issues around and which are important to all of us, meaning and purpose and value as a human being, then we focus in that manner. But we also approach this holistic approach, if you will, from the perspective of 5 cornerstones. One of them being the spiritual, as I mentioned, the other being health focused. So we help empower individuals that are dealing with advanced illness. We do focus on very heavily also advanced care planning. We focus on the caregiver. We don't leave out the caregivers. They many times get left out of this equation. They're tremendously, as we all know, important to the support of people that are dealing with health challenges, chronic illnesses, and advanced illness. But we also focus in on the social needs. So transportation, of course, pre-COVID, there was a lot going on in that avenue, if you will, housing, meals, preparation of meals. So as you notice, all 5 of those cornerstones really do focus on a holistic approach to life, mind, body, and spirit. So I got involved in this space many years ago in a personal experience when my dad was diagnosed with an end-stage cancer. And our approach was very much one that believes in meditation, the power of prayer, really leaning in on our faith. And I have to say that our situation was a wonderfully unique one, in that the doctors gave my dad 8 months to live, and he lived with metastatic cancer 8 years. And so I'm a firm believer in the value of the spiritual and a holistic approach to life. So I'll stop there, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Pastor Dr. Gloria White Hammond, all the way from Boston, Massachusetts. Gloria, come on in.
Thank you so much. It's so great to see everybody. Best wishes from the best coast, which is New England. Amen. I wear several hats. I am a physician. I practice pediatrics in a community healthcare setting for almost 30 years before retiring, and did some international work, particularly advocating for women who are victims of conflict. I am also a minister. My husband and I co-pastor an African Methodist Episcopal congregation here in the Boston area. We launched the church about 35 years ago or so. And one of our signature projects is our work that we do with regard to advanced care planning. We call it Planning Ahead. It's a ministry that we launched 6 years ago to encourage our members to think about their advanced care plans. And that has been a real labor of love for us. At this point, probably 3/4 of the regular attendance has been engaged in advanced care planning. So for us, it's been enough to really normalize conversations around advanced care planning. I am also at this point, I have an appointment at Harvard Divinity School. So I teach medical and School of Divinity and School of Public Health students. And those are my delights. And I am sitting around my dining room table, and where my family gathers and friends gather, and we've had meetings here. And when my husband and I had a vision to launch our church, we actually gathered for our first Bible study with 5 people around this dining room table. And now when we gather, once upon a time when we gathered, we're about 250 people. So our table isn't big enough now, but this is the table that holds a lot of memories for me. And I'm glad to be able to join you today.
Thank you so much. God bless you. And we have also a person who's on the move today. He's out on not the best coast, but the West Coast, out there now. Pastor Brandon Reams. Pastor Brandon, come on in and say hello to everybody.
Praise God. Praise God. How is that? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine, sir.
Praise God. Praise God. Bless you, sir. I'm going to cut my introduction somewhat short right now, but I'm Pastor Brandon Reams. I work along with Minister Cynthia Carter-Elliott, and we're in Oakland. And I'm just excited to be a part with the group today. I apologize that I'm not at a more of a stable location, but I am somewhat on the move. But I am excited to be a part. I'm excited about the work that we're doing. My mother is Bishop Ernestine Cleveland Reams. Our church has been established in the Bay Area over 60 years, and I'm excited to be a part of this group. I apologize about the background, but I'm somewhat walking. I'm excited because basically I've learned so much being a part of the ACCA. I really thank God for Minister Cynthia and our care navigators, but also the team that we have. And that's what has made this work a blessing for us, because it's been a real team effort. Areas where, things that we didn't understand, she gave us understanding along with special training. But the key was, and the key is to this, I'm a caregiver myself. My mother is 92 years old, and me and my brother, we are her caregivers. And so this is more than just work for me. It's more than just being a part of a group. This is my life now. And I've learned so much being a part, and I'm excited about what we're going to share today. And I'll share more when I'm more of a quiet space. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you definitely sharing those words of wisdom with us. I saw in the chat somebody is starting a turf war here already, saying the West Coast is the best coast. So we're going to hold off on the turf wars now, and understand that we're all in this together. All right, regardless of what coast. I don't have a coast. I'm, so we're good. I got, as a matter of fact, I got the Detroit River. So that's my coast. So that's a good place to be for me. And so I thank God for all of you being on with us once again. Let's move forward. Let's behind me, you see that it says Table Talk. Join the conversation. There's a huge knife and a fork. I believe that my philosophy is that the greatest time for people to intake information is while eating. While the body is receiving food, the mind is equipped to receive food as well. But we're going to feed you today from the table where we sit at Reimagine, and we're going to hear some great things from these great individuals. So I want you to get ready. You can get your pens and paper out, or your phones, devices, take notes, and then we'll have an opportunity for you to dialogue together as well. So let's dive in and let's make this happen now. What I want to do is start off by really, talking about the foundational element of why we are here today as people of faith, people who believe in what we do, people who have a spiritual foundation. All the speakers here have that. We have that spiritual foundation. The question is, when it comes to end of life, when it comes to hospice and palliative care, how does faith play into this? And then also, as African Americans, on top of being people of faith, how does all of that work together? I'm going to share these statistics, and I'm going to ask our speakers to kind of jump in and begin to talk about this. And I don't know, we can do it. At this table, we're kind of, loose and open. So when somebody feels something, just jump right in. Our speakers, talking to our speakers only, jump right in, and we can make it happen. But I want to give you this. It says, and this data is about a couple years old, but the completion rate for African Americans as it relates to advanced care planning is 17%, 17, and it's over 30% for Caucasian Americans. So 17, and then 30%, and then in the Hispanic community, it's very close to where the African American community is right now, and that is around that 17, 18, but it's less than 20%. So all those numbers are not like fantastic. There's still an issue. There's a lag there when it comes to people of color and even indigenous Americans. Those statistics are along those lines too as well. So the BIPOC community, we share in the fact that this is a subject that we're not talking about much. From any of our speakers, and maybe I'll go and I'll ask Dr. Gloria, can you expound upon the fact that you being a doctor and a physician and also a pastor, how has faith played a role or not so much in advanced care planning in the communities that you serve?
Oh, faith is certainly bedrock. And we often talk about it's really faith that has brought us thus far, and faith that will lead us home. With regard to advanced care planning, that I would say has been one of the most important aspects of our work, and to understand that God has called us to be here for a finite period of time. Jesus planned ahead, and we likewise can plan ahead. And when people operate in that reassurance that God is with them now and will be with them on the other side, it's a much easier step for individuals to take. And I often tell the story of a little girl who I took care of, who had a very bad cancer, and at 5 years old decided that she didn't want to do the treatments anymore. And the last time I saw her, she was getting an infusion of platelets and having a party. And she explained to me the reason she was having a party was because God had told her that she was going to go to heaven. she was going to see her grandmother and she wasn't going to be sick anymore. And that's why she had a party. And what I found is that when people really become in touch with that reality that there is a better place waiting for them, and you provide them with the support and the resources, they're able to make that leap. You just got to stay with people. And again, resources, relationships make all the difference.
Wow. So from your perspective, you see faith as definitely being an asset.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. Up in New York.
Sure, I'd like to jump in.
Please
Absolutely.
do. Please do.
The other best coast, the East Coast, New York City. But looking at or listening to your statistics, the 17% for African Americans in terms of completing an advanced care plan, less than 20% for Latinos, and 30% for Caucasians. Unfortunately, I'm not surprised by those numbers. And, I think when in our work with the HOPE program, which by the way is a hospice outreach patient and provider engagement program, we've learned a tremendous amount. Oftentimes sort of debunking this perception that African Americans and Latinos, are not amenable to hospice. I say debunking it because what we've learned, and certainly in my role as both administrator and then out, on the front lines doing the work, I have really never had faith be an obstacle. In fact, it's been a facilitator to hospice care as well as an advanced care planning. I think what we've learned is that unfortunately, we sort of have a culture that does not want to think about death as being sort of, even when one is sick. We have a healthcare system that certainly focuses on more medicine than the option of hospice and comfort care and palliative care. And so, patients and people who end up in the hospital situation are often going in the direction of their provider. And so I think that we need to be leveraging faith, spirituality, as we've learned in our focus groups. We've been hosting focus groups with faith-based leaders throughout New York City. And they have, really heightened our awareness that faith is definitely not a barrier. It is a peaceful place. It is a safe place. And when you have faith, oftentimes it can be that grounder for saying death is my ultimate comfort. So I think as we think about programs, as we think about implementation and how we reach out to our communities, we need to be integrating faith as part of our messaging. But also be acutely aware that this is a multi-system issue, as it is a personal issue and a community issue.
Thank you. Cynthia, kind of dovetailing off of what Michelle just said, and faith being seen as a valuable tool. With your work out in Oakland, California, you've done a lot. We have Pastor Reams on the line today with us as well, who can attest to that. But my question is to you, are we using the right language? That's something that you bring up often that I hear you talk about. How can language be a barrier for people of faith? Because I know that people of faith sometimes struggle with what we're talking about, even talking about death in and of itself. So how can we better look at language as being more of an asset and not a barrier when it comes to talking about ACPs?
Yes, thank you for that question, Pastor Corey. I do agree that language is particularly important. It's really interesting when we think about communities of color, and I'll speak specifically about the African American community at this point. Of course, we speak English. We speak the language of the nation, if you will. However, we have our unique ways of communicating with one another. And I think that it's really important, and some of the successes that we've seen in our work is that when it comes to the issue of advanced care planning, people that, number one, look like the community, that can speak the language of faith when you're talking to the faith-based community. In other words, if someone, says, hey, I really thank God for what he's doing in my life. And I just, believe that God's going to strengthen me through this serious illness process that I'm going through. That language is very comforting and embraced language, or embraced by individuals that have that kind of background typically. However, many times if we speak the natural language of faith in the space with clinicians that may not be individuals of faith, or that have a quote unquote spiritual background, if you will, many times that language is misconstrued. Or on the other side, clinicians speak a language that may have acronyms, or talk about diagnoses and don't clearly articulate what that means. So when I speak about language messaging, what is it that we're trying to say? And can we have an interpreter that, in our case, the care navigator is just that person? Because number one, they're trusted. We talk about faith, and I think we're coming certainly from the context of faith in a higher power, faith in God. But I think the other side of that is trust, right, in the healthcare system. And we know that there's all kind of data that speaks to why we as African Americans have a mistrust for the medical system. I am engaged and have worked many years as a hospice professional. So I'm very connected to not only the faith-based community, but also the medical community. And so, yes, language is tremendously important. Interpreters that can have the comfort and build the trust with our faith-based community colleagues, partners, families, and friends, but also health professionals that will honor. We talk a lot about person-centered care and true person-centered care, but are we really honoring what people want and honoring the language that they use and having clinicians be okay with that? So I think it's a huge topic. We could spend a lot of time on it, but I will say that we've seen a lot of incredible outcomes. In our work at the ACCA, our population that we serve is about 80% African American, and we're seeing 55% completion of advanced care plans. And
Wow.
so people ask why that might be, and a lot of that, thank you, a lot of that goes to our incredible care navigators, some of which I see on the call right now. I see you, Reverend Land, I see you, Mary, Spencer, Dr. Lintis, and some of our team. So it's because these folks are thoroughly prepared, trained, have the trust of the community, and are interpreters, if you will, and incredible listeners. How important is that? To listen to what people say and respond based on what they want, not what we want for them.
Well, thank you for really talking about the importance of the language, because that trust goes along with that. Because sometimes you can speak the same language, or at least attempt to, but you may not carry the credibility that warrants a person to really buy in. And so when you have individuals who are part of the process, who understand the community, who know the community, who may live in the community, all those are factors. And so to hear a 55% completion rate is absolutely awesome. So that means that people are talking about it. Pastor Reams, you are part of the ACCA, and I want you to share from a pastor's perspective, because not all pastors are seeing what you're seeing out there in Oakland, and they're not experiencing that. So can you talk a little bit about the impact that you've seen on the faith community in that area that have joined in with the ACCA?
Sure, I can. And let me just kind of piggyback a little bit on what Minister Cynthia was sharing, and kind of just give you the remix, because what she was really, really sharing and what's happening and what has happened And yes, we are the faith community. And what I found is sometimes we as the faith community can kind of feel like we know what we think we need to know. And it's been a great blessing learning the things that we've learned about end-of-life care, about dealing with people. I'll put that up some, Brian. But the key is relationships. And that's what we as pastors have really, really established. A lot of us didn't even know how many caregivers we had in our ministry. And then the next piece of that is really, really dealing with the end of life. So yes, it's the faith community, but the key is the education that we've received is helping us. But then the next piece is relationship. And so me as that faith leader, being able to come in, talk to that family, communicate with that family, and they don't see me as a physician, they see me as a person of faith. And so the key is because of that relationship, maybe something they weren't hearing, because language is important, but maybe something that they weren't hearing from the physician or the care, the person giving them information. As a faith leader, I'm able to come in and really share with them, let them know this is what's important, as well as at the same time begin to educate and say, hey, let's all take a look at our end-of-life plan. What's the plan for the end of life? What's the plan for, this family member or whatever? And really, really begin to open that up and talk about it, and then assist and say, hey, we have a navigator. She's going to call you. She's going to continue this conversation with you and help you make this happen. That's what's really, really important. And once again, it goes back to having the knowledge. I appreciate the ACCA because they don't just give us the relationship of caregiver and the person that they're working with, but they've connected us with physicians. We've had dinners with physicians, and I'm able to learn from them. They're able to learn from me. And once again, you're going back to relationship. That's the key. Pastor Corey.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. To hear you say that pastors need to understand that they don't know everything, to me is one of the key elements. So building that relation, and so having that building that relationship with yourself is saying that I don't know everything. I can learn from different people. I can even learn from a physician, even though we may serve the chief physician, as we say in the Christian circles. We serve the chief physician, but there's nothing wrong with working with the physicians who are on earth, who work with us each and every day, who by the permission of the chief physician are able to do the things that they do. And so that's something that we have to really take a strong, hard look at, building that bridge between pastors and healthcare. How did that happen for you? If I can just ask you that, how was that bridge built? How did you come to that place of saying, I need to sit down at the table and learn some more?
Basically through the ACCA and through the program that they've designed. And what we also need people to recognize is that a lot of times, not only do the pastors, we don't know everything, but it's also important that the physicians recognize they don't know everything. And so it's just been a great blessing, because the ACCA has connected us with physicians, brought us to the table, but also the key is we as pastors. Now I'm able to teach another pastor, share with him how important this connection is, how important that he find out in his congregation how many caregivers are a part of his congregation, really, really making sure that the information is getting out that the people need. A lot of times information we may assume or think that they have, they really don't have it, they don't know it. And so it's been a real great blessing having the connection. And then also recognizing during times when there's things that I don't know, I'm able to refer them back to the ACCA, and I guarantee you they get the answer that they need. And so it's just been a great, not only partnership, but it goes back to teamwork. It has to be a team. And so you're looking at the care navigator, at the pastor, at the point person. Everybody's important in the big picture because you're dealing with people's lives. All right, Pastor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Pastor Gloria, I want to throw it at you now because based upon what he said, I know the ACCA is doing great work out in Oakland. What are some organizations that you've been able to work with that have helped to bridge the gap between the faith community and the health community in your area, being a physician / pastor?
Sure. Well, the organization that we've worked with especially is the Conversation Project, and I imagine that that's familiar to a number of people. They were doing some of the earliest work with regards to providing materials that would facilitate that conversation, and they've been tremendous partners with us. I will also say that physicians have been great partners. I put in the chat a reference to an article that is one that is often cited in medical circles, and it's written by a radiation oncologist who led the group and working with a group of patients who had advanced cancer and looking at the role that spirituality played in terms of their end-of-life experience. And what they found was that when the medical team at least acknowledged the importance of someone's spirituality, that those individuals were more likely to access hospice, they were less likely to die in the ICU, and less likely to ask for the more quote, extraordinary measures. So I've said to my physician colleagues that you get better outcomes when you at least acknowledge the importance of spirituality and the role that a spiritual community can play. And as Pastor Reams has acknowledged, what really works is to have that partnership where I come on behalf of my congregant who is your patient, and we collaborate to ensure that this person has the best life leading up to death as they can. So absolutely, those partnerships make a difference. And my hope is that in the wake of COVID-19, and as these disparities have become more apparent, and there is a deep commitment, I hope beyond just well-crafted letters, to really establish equity, that we will realize that when it comes to doing this work of end-of-life care, our best resources are people in the communities, in congregations that speak the vernacular. And again, if you give people the resources and support the relationships, people will have these critical conversations.
Thank you so much. Michelle, I know with you being a part of a hospice program on the East Coast in New York, how is your organization addressed, or how is your organization trying to address through the Hope Project and other measures to actually address the gap between the healthcare community and the faith community as you've witnessed there in New York?
Well, I mean, I had so many thoughts based on the comments of my colleagues, and I'd like to sort of just make a couple of additional points about
sure. Go ahead.
and this definitely coincides with the work of the Hope program, which is really the central need to be connected to the community in very real day-to-day living ways. And I say that by not just meeting the patient when they're in the hospital, but how do we actually meet you where you live, work, and play, so that before you get into a hospital situation. So what we've done is we are now reaching out to faith-based leaders, trying to really understand if they have ministries or programs within their faith-based institutions, and collaborating around, advanced care planning and programming specifically. One of the things that I think I've learned over the 4 or 5 years of doing this work and doing research and talking to doctors and talking to community members is that there is still so many misperceptions about what hospice is, what palliative care is, what is an advanced care plan. And I think that's one of the central roles that the faith-based community can play for their congregants, being able to elucidate and to actually debunk some of the myths, because the truth is that when people have this information and they have an advanced care plan, they really become partners with their physicians. And that really is the goal. We want, I think the vision should be, is that patients are aware and people are aware of what an advanced care plan is, what goes into an advanced care plan, what might be relevant at any point in time when they're in touch with their physician. But once you begin to have a dialogue with your doctor about these things, he or she, that is just going to, I think, enhance not only the quality of care, but really the level of interaction. And the research does document that African Americans and Latinos are oftentimes dissatisfied, those who are in the hospital and are terminally ill. They are dissatisfied with the quality, the quantity of communication between themselves and their physician. As an RN liaison, working at many hospitals to promote hospice and to educate, there are so many patients that were in a hospital situation. They did not know that they were terminally ill, did not have an advanced care plan in place until the doctor referred them to hospice care. So we also have the factor that people are being referred to end-of-life services far too late. And they don't have the advantage of understanding what it is. They're fearful of it. There are many, I think, levels of work that we need to be doing. And the faith-based piece is so critical, because hopefully we can get the information out, educate people, before they're in a situation where they are terminally ill and someone is putting them on a vent because there's no advanced care plan in place. So, our goal through the HOPE program is really to build and expand our relationship with faith-based leaders, empower them, give them tools and resources. Very, very interested in what Minister Cynthia has described as their strategy. Love the whole navigator piece. I mean, you guys are present and really bringing the faith-based leaders together with physicians to have a dialogue is very, very powerful. That's the work that we're starting to do, and we want to expand on that.
Thank you. So now let me get real. I mean, we got about 10 minutes here. So I want to just have us to just be real about something here. With the ACCA and all the great work that they're doing, we understand, Cynthia, and I'm coming to you, Cynthia, you weren't always there. There's a reason why you started that organization, or you began that work with the faith leaders. But truth be told, Black people we're not talking about this. We're not talking about death at the dinner table. We're not talking about death in our homes or planning for it, or what hospice means, or palliative care. So we need the nuts and bolts, the down and dirty from these great experts as to why we are not talking about this subject matter as African Americans, as Black people in America. Cynthia, come on, start it off, kick it off. Let's talk about it.
All right. Corey said the down and dirty, you all.
That's right. Let's get real.
The reality is nobody likes to talk about death. It doesn't matter what your ethnic background, your gender, it doesn't matter. Nobody likes to talk about death. I could tell you a funny story. I'm also a vocalist, a singer. And as a kid, Brad and I have talked about this before. I had really enjoyed singing at funerals. It was very interesting. And I thought, why do I enjoy singing at funerals? And I think so much of that came to me as a type of appreciation, I think, is that it was an opportunity for people to really hear what was being sung or being said or being stated. People were in a quiet, meditative place, and they really could take in what the message is. And I'm really a person that believes in, again, messaging and trying to connect with people on a level that they can receive what's being said. Why aren't we talking about this? Again, it's not a subject that we like to talk about, death and dying, but I think it's really important and that we talk about life. Death is a part of life. And one of the things that I get really excited about in our partnership and relationship with the Reimagine team is that we really are about how to live a quality life, how to live our best life, how to live every moment of every single day. How do we value these incredible relationships that all of us have been so blessed and fortunate to engage in? I feel so fortunate to see all of you and to have this conversation with all of you. And so there's much to say about life. And I think if we approach this subject of aging, serious illnesses, chronic illness, and ultimately end of life, I think if we approach it again from a human, holistic perspective, what do we have in common? Well, we have humanity. We all want the best for our families. We want the best for our children. But to approach the subject really through storytelling and story listening, and story listening is so very important. I think we really connect with the humanity. And even to this day, I've been in this field now my dad passed away in 91, almost 30 years. I've been in this space, one form or another, and I'm still so excited about it. And why is that? It's because of what I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at each of you, and people just, I don't know, I just have a thing about people, about humanity, about what we have in common. Oh my God. And so I see you, Brad. It's like, yes. I mean, that's what floats my boat. I get excited about what we have in common and identifying those things and meeting at a very human level. And so that being said, no matter what our differences, we have so much in common. And if we approach this subject matter from a life and lively perspective and a human level, then I think we're onto something really big and really important. And really, people do listen when they have bad news. They listen when they have been diagnosed with a very difficult disease. They listen when they're having a health challenge or someone in their family, someone near and dear to them. And so my thinking is, let's listen before we get bad news. Let's talk about what's important before. In other words, advanced thinking, advanced care, advanced planning. So
Wow,
that's where I would leave the discussion.
You saying it, you get into the down and dirty now. That's what I'm talking about. There are people in the chat that are becoming great fans of your dialogue. So, but Pastor Reams, I got to know from a pastor's perspective, how, from your perspective on the West Coast, not the best coast, but the West Coast, tell me this: how did you begin this dialogue with your congregation? What moved you to have the talk with your congregation, and then how did you do it?
You know, and don't get upset, but you gotta understand the West Coast is this is where God lives, and so I'm just gonna let you know he has a home.
All right.
But I'm messing with you. The bottom line, and I was always blessed, and that's what really, after really getting the real information that I received through the knowledge of the ACCA. But my mother always pre-planned, more than ample insurance, made it very, very clear to us. I have things set in place through my attorneys, what I want done. This is what I want. This is how I want it. And being younger, I didn't really understand at that time what all of that meant. But I was taught and raised that way, that you prepare, get things in place, have things prepared. And so after really learning, more about at the end of life care planning, now through the ACCA, through our care navigators, and really just putting the information out there. It's difficult because you're right. Congregations don't want to have that conversation. They really don't. And what I'm finding is a lot of times younger people, it's somewhat difficult for us because we don't want to look at that. We really don't want to deal with that because we look at our youth. But what I'm finding is that it's important, and not only just important, but the bottom line is what we find is if people are not prepared, then now things can fall back on the ministry, or, families need assistance. And so, hey, now we have just a regular training yearly where we're helping people learn and make sure that their end of life plan is in place.
So you built this into your ministry now.
Yes, it is a part of our ministry now. Our health ministry, they teach this during the year to the people, as well as we've been blessed because there's a video, and I'm sure about it, but we've been able to watch this video, Extremists, that is really opened the eyes of a lot of people. And even though it's difficult to watch, so if death is difficult to watch, it's difficult to talk about. And so the blessing is that we've been able to show this video to the congregation, certain members, leaders of the congregation, and that conversation alone really begins to open people's eyes.
Yeah, Extremists. Yes, shouts out to my good friend, Dr. Jessica Zitter, and her great work on that film, and glad to see how it has influenced you in your ministry and blessing your congregation. I know that, Dr. Gloria, you've worked with Jessica Zitter as well, and I believe that you've been involved in showing Extremists. How has that impacted your congregation and those who you affiliate with in the Boston area?
Sure, and I put in the chat at least the Wikipedia reference to, oh good, I'm glad someone put it from Netflix in terms of Extremists, which is a documentary that really takes you into the intensive care unit and looking how families of color, the tension they experience when they have not had these conversations and the difference that it makes when they have. And so we have found Extremists to be especially helpful because many people, if they haven't experienced that tension in the ICU, it's hard for them to wrap their minds around it. And I want to piggyback on what Pastor Reams said. I absolutely, as a pastor myself, I can tell you that it really does begin with the leadership and normalizing the experience of death. And again, our days are numbered. And so the word says is to approach them with wisdom. And part of the wisdom is to plan ahead like you would any trip at all. So it's important for the pastors to have this experience. And I know as a pastor that you can't do it all. So, but if you identify people in your congregation who would have a passion for this, that can make a huge difference. And I can say again, as a physician, I understand why physicians don't necessarily ask the question beyond do you have a healthcare proxy? Because it's a longer conversation, again, that is best had in the context of a supportive environment, which for many people, their communities of faith are. And then we start telling people stories. One of my favorite stories is of a woman who developed lung cancer, and we had just started doing planning ahead at the time. And she anticipated that she was going to fight it, that God was going to heal her. And in time, it became apparent that it didn't look like that was going to be the case. So she started planning ahead. She went to the funeral home and picked out her plot and all of her burial stuff, got her advanced care, got a proxy. And the thing that was remarkable, because she did all of that work when she did die, and her family went to the funeral home anticipating that they were going to have to pay for the funeral, they discovered that the mom had paid for it. And the daughter said that it made such a difference for her to realize that she wasn't going to have to sacrifice her son's first year tuition because her mother had planned ahead. And when people start to hear those stories, they realize, yeah, I can do this. And it's not as threatening after all. And again, it's not just about dying well, it's living even better. And testimonies, you start
Wow.
getting those testimonies and people are like, sign me up. It's a hard conversation, but again, a supportive pastor, relationships, resources, people are willing to engage.
Okay, so we are right at the end here of our talk, but I want to give all of you, all of our speakers, the opportunity to just sum up. And I'm going to go to Michelle in New York. Michelle, can you give us just something that you want the people to take into their break rooms, their chat rooms, and to walk away with from this conversation?
I think, Pastor Corey, to your last point is really speaking to what is stopping us from having the conversation before the crisis happens. And, that is where, the urgency, the lack of sort of preparation for family members, for the patient themselves, happens when they're in a situation and they're faced with the announcement or pronouncement that they have a terminal diagnosis. There's nothing more medically that can be done for them. And now where am I at? It becomes a crisis. So, we really need to be talking about prevention. We need to be talking about what does it mean to have a relationship with your physician and how you measure that physician, and making sure that we have advocates, that if we have older family members or parents, that we're going to their physician appointment with them, and that we're really making sure that we have extensive conversations. And if that physician is not having a conversation with you, then it may be the wrong physician that you're going to. So prevention, preparation, and early conversation.
Wow, thank you. Pastor Reams, final word or final remark, what you want people to walk away with.
Bless you. Thank you, Pastor Corey. And I really appreciate everyone on the group today, everyone being a part. And I really just want to kind of leave with you today. First of all, these conversations and what we are talking about today, and just the very same way that we are having this conversation, it's important that we continue to do this. Very, very important. And that, this is doable. As difficult as the conversations might be, it's doable to beginning the conversations where, some people, maybe they're not going to have the full experience of seeing extremes, but hey, having conversations, making sure that even with family, making sure that every opportunity that we can, we are sharing this information. Now, as a pastor, it's important, since I'm aware, I have to share. That's just kind of one of my things. It's important that when I'm dealing with families, when I'm talking with families, and even as the other pastor shared, having those advocates, that's the blessing of the ACCA, having the navigators, having people that can continue the conversation with folks. It's important. But at the end of the day, it's important that we know that, hey, we are all empowered to share and to release this information so that people's lives can be changed. But it's important that we have the hard conversations. God bless you all. It's been really, really great.
Thank you. When I'm aware, I must share. I'm going to take that with me. Cynthia, talk to me. Final words. What do you want people to walk away from the table with today?
Final words, walk away from the table. I guess I would really love it if we all could fully embrace that it's okay to talk about race, that it's okay to talk about faith. It's okay to talk about culture. It's okay. I love this concept that Reimagine is putting forth, and we're simply referring to it as table talk. This is good stuff. And I love the fact that we have a great and diverse group on this table talk first conversation. it's a good thing. We have our differences, but we also have our similarities, and we're all parts, an important part of the human race. So identifying, recognizing that the more we can embrace not only our differences, but our similarities, then I think we'll have a deeper respect for one another. And I think there's something to be said about mutual respect. And of course, we've touched on that in our discussions around empowering community through navigators, empowering pastors, empowering clinicians, physicians, nurses, social workers, home health aides, volunteers. We need everybody. This is all hands on deck. So I would just say, I would love for us to continue these kinds of conversations and just connecting on a very human level around living and quality of life, and of course, what that looks like at the very end. So I really
Thank you.
appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Pastor Gloria, you have the final word for the speakers before we go to Stephanie.
Well, I'm so excited to have all of you on the call today. I certainly want to encourage you. I think what is true in the context of all that's going on now is that people have an increasing sense of vulnerability. This is absolutely the right time to initiate these conversations. People are ready. They're just waiting for you to show up and speak life into who they are and what God's called them to do, and engage in these conversations. Again, planning ahead, it's not so much about dying well as it is living well. And God bless you as you pass the word.
I just want to thank everybody again for coming, sharing the space, and being part of this amazing discussion in our very first table talk. This was absolutely amazing, and I hope that you receive something beautiful for yourselves today. We're going to take this and close out this table talk. I'm going to turn it back over to Corey. Thank you, Corey, for your wonderful moderation of this event. And I am looking forward to sharing space with all of you guys again in the next few table talks. They're happening every Wednesday going forward for the next few weeks. There's 3 more table talks. So check the website for this. It's letsreimagine.org/table talk. All right, Corey, thank you so much. Take it away.
Hey, Jeannie. Hi. So with that being said, as people of faith, let's close out with prayer. Almighty Creator, we thank you for this opportunity to come together. We pray that your grace and your peace will be upon us all as we get up from this table to go to our respective tables. Allow the conversations to be rich and as powerful as this one was for us. Allow us to take the things that we've learned and apply them to our lives. And let's reimagine how we can make life better from this day forward. It is in your precious name we pray. Amen. Thank
The
you.
church said amen.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. God bless everyone.